What's
right?
next?
Sam writes, I was just wondering why some older actors get more recognition than others. For example, I was born in 93, holla, and growing up, everyone my age knew who Jack Nicholson, Robert De Niro, and Clint Eastwood were, but no one knew anything about other legendary actors like Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, and Al Pacino. Why is it that some of cinema's greats are not as well known to today's audiences as others?
Well, I'm going to say back in 2000, 2010, people knew who Al Pacino is. But you're right. I think a lot of the younger audience don't realize who Dustin Hoffman is, like the great Dustin Hoffman. There are some people who don't really realize who Gene Hackman is, and all that kind of stuff. I think the reason is because up till a number of years ago, Jack Nicholson was still quite active. Robert De Niro has always stayed very active. Clint Eastwood is always very active. He's not acting, he's directing, and he's up at the Academy Awards, and he's all that kind of stuff. So when you look at Hackman, who's de facto retired, when you look at a guy like Dustin Hoffman, who does very few things right now, only when he kind of feels like it, does little things like Chef or whatever, but for the most part, he keeps himself out of the limelight. So I think the reason some younger generation today will recognize certain older generation names is because those older generation names are still active. And the ones that they are not really familiar with are the ones that are no longer active. I think that's a shame, but it's understandable at the same time, too. I don't know, Schnepp, how would you answer that?
I think wherever you grew up, Spink, your friends weren't watching movies. That's all I can say. It's like, because you got to watch The French Connection. You got to watch The Conversation to know who Gene Hackman is. Yeah, Gene Hackman is not active now. You're totally right. So that's what happens with every single set of a decade of actors and directors and writers, is they disappear as the next set of new people come in, new Hollywood fresh talent. That's just how it is. So in order to find out about these people, like you did, you probably had to go and do some homework and research and watch some of the older, like Kramer versus Kramer for Dustin Hoffman. I think Dustin Hoffman's last hit was Rain Man, and that was over 20 years ago. So, that's just how it is. Was that? Oh, Tootsie. But that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's like, it makes sense. His question isn't crazy. It's just, that's exactly how it works.
No, it does. Yeah, it's a young person writing the question, and maybe they saw Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium and was like, "Who the hell is this nut on the screen?" But I think that when you're a kid today, you just have more homework to do, because everybody starts out and you probably see the same movies. You probably see The Wizard of Oz and you see Star Wars and you see a lot of animated features. And then you get older and you get into film and you're like, okay, well, what am I going to get into? Stuff that's coming out right now. I want to go see this movie and all these comic book movies and action movies. And then eventually you want to see more, and so then you have to go back into the catalog. But that catalog for me, when I was a child of the 80s and the 90s, is a lot less extensive than somebody who's just coming into their own now and seeing how much they love movies and doing the research. But you should definitely know who Gene Hackman, Al Pacino, and Dustin Hoffman are. Hackman, sadly, he's retired, but that guy is he's one of my favorite actors of all time, even more so than De Niro and Pacino. I love Gene Hackman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're looking at things like Hoosiers, like even beyond, obviously, French Connection, those classic Hoosiers, he was, for several generations, our understanding of Lex Luthor. He was Lex Luthor. I mean, but you know what I think his last film was? I have to look this up to be sure. I think his last film was actually comedy everybody hated, but I actually didn't
Heartbreakers?
mind. Heartbreakers.
No, I didn't.
With
I didn't hate
Weaver
it either.
And
I thought it was fun.
Who was the girl from
Jennifer
Party?
Love Hewitt.
With Jennifer Love Hewitt. I actually thought that was a cute.
I
like
don't
it
want to
too.
rain on anybody's
I like it
parade,
too.
but I believe the film Welcome to Mooseport
With
was
Ray-
the last time we saw Gene Hackman.
Do you think that
on
came
screen.
after Heartbreakers? Did that come after?
It definitely came after Heartbreakers.
You
yeah,
might
I'm pretty
be
sure
right. That
it was
rings
Welcome to
true.
I'm not
to me.
arguing with this Gene Hackman lover. He knows.